We are going to start recording this right now, so it'll be forever in posterity how bad I messed this up or not. So, you know, don't worry about making mistakes or saying anything. And I'm also going to share my screen, if it will let me. And can everybody see that? Because I can't see anything. Okay. Can everybody see the screen? Okay, and good morning.
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for all attending. This is the Family Reading Program, a facilitated learning circle for early literacy, a guide to virtual programming. Hello. And this is a facilitated learning circle zone. And remember, it's a collaboration of your experiences. And the rules for participating, and I'll go over this briefly. Please be respectful. Don't speak over one another. Switch off all distractions, dogs and cats excluded. And I need to add little children onto that, by the way. And please don't multitask during the learning circle. If you could switch off your cell phones and other distractions, that would be nice. And our objectives for this session 2 is phonological awareness and executive functions of focus and self-control. The best practices you guys have run across for your virtual story times, sharing of early literacy and mind in the making skills in virtual story times, and might have a little brief discussion time, or we'll have discussion times throughout the presentation. Okay, and this is our timeline. We're on Thursday, November 5th. This is session 2. And I want to start this off with phonological awareness, and that is word awareness, onset rhyme awareness, syllable awareness, and phoneme awareness. I'm assuming that most of you have had some training in this. If you have any questions about it, we'll all be glad to help you with it. But mainly one of the reasons that I chose this one to start off with is because it is one of the ones that I think you will have the most trouble with virtual story time, putting this into your virtual story time. A lot of this requires, from my own experience, is instructing parents and caregivers about the importance of letting children look at your mouth. When the little ones, 3 and under especially, because that's how they learn how to talk. And they have to watch your mouth, and you have to give them an unobstructed view. And when you're in even doing a story time to kids, which I remember, this was not the easiest of skills to be able to communicate effectively with. One of the things I'm hoping with in virtual story time, you will be able to do things with editing that will make the process easier to incorporate into your story time, so the skill can be taught. Now, what's the benefit of these skills? Hold on. Oop. Why is it important? These awareness skills are the basis for reading. And without these skills, potential reading difficulties will occur in the early years and continue on. A child who has concrete phonological skills will have a strong platform in which to develop reading skills. Because let's face it, speaking and things like that and communicating are the bedrock of learning. You have to be able to communicate with one another verbally, even non-verbally, but this is one of the more important awareness skills that we as librarians need to help parents teach their children. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen for a moment, and let's talk about what you guys are running into out there. With your virtual story times, as all of you know, that you don't have an audience sometimes to interact with, so you can't see if they're getting it or not getting it. Have any of you come up with a means to get feedback from the audience in those such situations, if you've recorded it or whether you're doing it live? Because even when you're doing a story time live, you have to pull down the book, look at the audience and see if they're getting it and try to elicit a response. You know, I know there's a lot of preparation in this, but I have found that recording it allows you the ability to, like I said earlier, focus on the mouth, maybe edit it in rather than move your face close to the screen. You know, that won't help parents too much with it, because, you know, unless you do what I saw one storyteller do, which was like, I actually do lean into the screen because I say, parents, I want you to do this when you're reading to your children and you run across a word, you know, that has a big, complex, long word. I want you to lean in close to their face like this and say, bananas. That was actually, to me, like, wow, I didn't think of that. So let's go around the room. First off, how many of you are teaching early literacy skills in your story times? And if you are, tell me how it's going. And let's start with a volunteer. Anybody? All right.
I'll speak for Jana and myself. We're here because we haven't done our family reading program story times yet, so we're here learning. So right now, Jana and I don't have any experience.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing. The reason that we're having this is that we want you to incorporate the early literacy and mind in the making skills into your story times so that parents can learn. Because as you know, parents are either stuck at home or their children have missed out on some early development. And this is our attempt as a public library to help ease that situation and that anxiety they may be feeling. Because I can't imagine having a baby right now or a child and going, have I missed the formative years? Are they going to be permanently behind? How much struggle is this? The guilt will be overwhelming, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. As librarians, we can do something about that. So we're hoping that when you do a story time, you can incorporate these skills in. So let's talk about that. Jess,
I was just gonna.
Yeah, can you tell us how you incorporate these things into your story times virtually?
Well, one thing that we have done in the past couple of weeks is we've made the camera tighter on me and on the book so that they can see my, face, such as it is, and the pictures in the book. One of the parents told me that the kids just love listening to the story time, but her daughter gets out her binoculars so she can see the pictures. So we decided we needed to make some changes. And so that's one thing that I've recently changed, is having the camera tighter on the book and on me. So it's just more like a headshot, and then the book is to my left.
And are you able to communicate with the parents at all about how to do this at home?
I haven't gotten into that yet, Bruce, to be honest with you.
That's okay.
We've been focusing on doing the activity packets and, getting, I often will, when I do a collection of books for parents, that gives me the opportunity to talk to them then. But, again, that's not something that I do every day, but I do have a few parents that I do that for, once or twice a month, so.
Yeah.
And I haven't tried I had 2 more books left over for the family reading program. I haven't done those yet. Like I said, because of the other reason. And then we're doing the collaboration with the before and after school programs. But that's something I might take a look at after the first of the year, maybe adding one more story time during the week. So we'll see how it goes.
Oh, okay. Emily, do you have any experiences yet, or have you attempted to do any skills in your virtual story times?
Not in my virtual story times, but because of my elementary school librarian background, I would ask the kids a lot of questions when it comes to like rhyming. Like, we've read this page and it has at least 4 or 5 sets of rhymes, have them volunteer to say them. I just tried to have as much participation as I could, but I know that's one of our big hurdles that we're all trying to overcome right now. So
exactly, yeah. And Matthew, have you had any problems with this, or you've attempted to do any of this? Are you doing any story times yet?
No, we haven't done any story times yet. Although I did have a question about wearing a mask while doing story time, because I've seen a lot of people do it, and it kind of it makes sense. You want to teach kids that wearing masks is important, but also that kind of blocks the view of how
Okay.
things navigate, so.
That is a good point, which I wanted to bring up a little bit towards the end. One of the things that if you start having in-person story times and they still have a mask rule for adults and stuff like that, or if you feel like it's sending a good message like that, there are these masks that actually allow you to see the mouth. It has a clear covering over the mouth area, which will allow you to see the words being formed. And this arose out of people with learning disabilities, and also kids who just naturally stare at where they think your mouth is and things like that. And that's a possibility in doing that. And you might, I think you guys can order these through your CARES funding, as well as maybe your LSTA. You'll have to ask Sue Lynn about that if you dare. But, it is one of those options. The other one is get the clear protective face mask, the shield. Use that instead so they can see your face and your mouth and your expressions and things like that. And, and it might be something else you might want to point out to the parents, that if they're concerned, like their child's not seeing enough of their mouth in the day and forming these words, it's a possibility to consider. And, I don't know how effective these masks are. My wife has a slight hearing disability, and she told me about it a while ago, but she hasn't brought home a mask with that yet either. So when I get one, I will demonstrate one, hopefully, Jasmine, do you have any experiences with this?
We haven't done anything virtually with it yet, but we did our family reading program last year, and we implemented those mind in the making skills in there, as well as the early literacy skills for the parents. And it's really just about being upfront and like, this is what's going to help your kid, so here's what you do and this is why. Right. Rather than dropping the subtle hints, just being open with the parents and this is what's going to work and this is why, because they're open to hearing that because they want to be able to teach their kids. So that's the experience we have with that.
Yeah. Robin, do you have anything that might?
We've been pretty good about keeping up our story times. We've produced a lot of virtual ones. We were turning out probably 2 a day because we have a reasonably large sized library system. Now I think we're down to 1 a day just to ease off and allow staff to do other things as things reopen. I don't think we've really formalized any early literacy skills. I think a lot of people faced a lot of challenges with just going virtual to begin with.
Right.
So we there's probably a lot of variance as well, since everyone's given the opportunity to participate. We are trying to do trainings as we all learn how to sort of move into this new format. So hopefully things will get streamlined with that. I know myself, I've never really formally been trained in early literacy. I've picked up a lot of things from fellow Storytime staff members, and I've been learning from them. So I've just tried to carry through a lot of the things that I've done naturally into my virtual story times. Our style is to do a pre-recorded video, so I kind of channel my inner kids TV host and just continue to ask a lot of questions and respond to answers that obviously I can't hear, but and encourage things like counting or naming colors or things that I would normally do in a story time anyway, with the hopes that someone out there gets a little bit of engagement out of it. And that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah, awesome. Well, I hope you guys can start including these skills into your programming so that you can help out with parents and things like that. because I think that's where the real anxiety is right now, is because parents are now worried about how far behind their children are and what if they have problems and things like that, because they couldn't go out to the library and learn these skills or even participate with other children. So there's a lot of obstacles out there that we can help them with. Did we speak to you, Nicole?
No, I guess I think I have a few things to add. Here at Henderson, we never had any kind of formal early literacy training at all. And with our strategic plan rolling out and me being in charge of the initiative for the 0 to 5, we decided we needed to do something. So last year we started training everybody in every child ready to read, just to make everyone aware that like these are things that we're already doing, but we also need to vocalize this to the parents, you know, and let them know. And one thing that we were going to start doing pre-pandemic was, you know, at least stating one tip in your story time and being really outright about it, like you guys were saying. But then we moved to virtual and everyone was trying to find their flow in that. And I think that's something that we're going to bring up again, at least, you know, adding a tip in there to let parents know, you know, hey, this is why we're doing this. They're getting things from it. And then, as Jess was saying too, we realized that we needed to move the camera closer to the books, because a lot of times they're watching it, you know, on a small device, on a phone, and you can't see the pictures, you can't see any of that, and you need to think about that. So we have started doing it, you know, like that. But yeah.
Okay, awesome.
I have one more thing just to
Sure.
What Nicole was saying. Not to do a disservice to Washoe County Library System, they have really done a great job of formalizing adding an early literacy tip with the video, just like Nicole noted. So, and I am a frequent user of Vroom, which obviously I got from participating in these calls to get a tip to add to my story time. So I highly recommend that app if anyone's not using it yet.
Okay, and one comment from Melissa, Washoe County started doing early literacy videos with tips and suggestions for parents to practice with their children. I can't remember how often they're posted though. I haven't participated in making one yet, but they're pretty cool. And I agree with Nicole. I think we can do a lot of stuff in our videos, but we don't really mention what we're doing to the parents. And that's a good thing to keep in mind, remember that everybody here is pretty much on the same level when it comes to making videos and what works and what doesn't work, because we all got thrown in at the same time. And for most of us, we were trained to do face-to-face story times. We had, our mindset is face-to-face. We're getting used to how we look on the camera, how we sound on the camera, how to edit, which hopefully maybe someday we can start offering that as a next thing. And you know, that's a lot of pressure on us too, but almost every library system, and I've looked at a lot of these videos, all of you guys have done a very good job at adapting to a very trying time for your patrons. And since Robin had mentioned Mind in the Making and Vroom, I'm going to now turn this, let me, hold on, one second. I'm going to turn this over to my colleague. And this is going to be my colleague's thing. One second while I pull up my screen again. And I'm sorry for the technical delay. My apologies. It's a lot easier to think about than to actually do. But I'm going to briefly share my screen. Okay, and we're going to talk about this amazing thing, Mind in the Making, focus, and self-control and perspective taking. And I'm going to let my colleague take this away, Sara. Sara, introduce yourself and share your screen.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sara Schrichte, and I work for the Children's Cabinet. And my job is to share with you Mind in the Making and Vroom. So Sorry, it's hard for me to talk and like navigate at the same time. Let me start my slideshow. So give me a thumbs up. Can you see this? See my screen? Sweet. Okay. So I just wanted to, like, Bruce, I didn't do this when we met earlier in the week, and I thought about kind of the way we were talking about these things, and I just wanted to back up a little bit at the top of this, just to remind us. I know some of you have been exposed to Mind in the Making and some of you haven't, and we're all at kind of different levels here. So I want to keep it at this kind of high level, but pointing out that we're talking about those 7 essential skills that come from Mind in the Making. The development of each of those life skills has to be promoted. It's not automatic, but it does have a developmental timeline kind of associated with each of those skills. All children can learn these skills. And the Mind in the Making 7 essential skills that we talk about, and we're going to get into those in a minute. We're going to talk to you about kind of the first 2 on the list, but they hinge on our executive function skills, our attention regulation skills. So I'm going to be asking you guys in many ways to be thinking about this for yourself to start with, because that's how we're eventually going to get this movement going where we can share and model this with others. So I just wanted to back up and sort of talk about, again, like, these 7 essential skills have a timeline, but it's important for us to promote them, and that they're really hinging on these executive function skills that we all use all the time in our everyday life, in tasks that are simple to tasks that are really complex. My information that I have to share with you really around Mind in the Making and Vroom is geared towards caregivers. So I also want to acknowledge that you're working with a particular audience, right, where you're engaging caregivers and kids kind of all at the same time. So one of the Mind in the Making strategies for folks who are working with families that way, like together, is to really enhance the awareness of these 7 essential skills and our executive functioning in the program staff, right? So we as staff members to understand this and see these things in our everyday lives. And then we can move on towards modeling that and embedding some of that learning and action into our programs. But really the overarching strategy is for us to acknowledge these skills in ourselves so that we start to build them into the things that we do almost naturally. But we can get more intentional, right? And we can train program staff or parents in the 7 essential skills. We can build discussions of executive functions into our programs, you know, when we can. And I understand we're maybe not, some of us are still just practicing the nuts and bolts and the logistics of getting our program out there virtually. So, but Vroom is a tool that can help, and I'm really excited to know that some of you are using it. So I think, let's see, did I put this on the next screen? Yeah. So I had shared this graphic with you the last time. When we talk about building those essential skills, these are kind of the 5 basic actions that we can take anytime to build those skills. And again, these things are happening already. You're using a lot of these brain building basics to practice those literacy skills and to share information about how to promote those literacy skills. So you're speaking to adults and you're modeling these behaviors when you're doing your programming. I see you, like when you're talking about masks, we're talking about how important it is to have this, to be able to look, right? To be able to see faces, the same kind of strategies that you might use to share what you're doing with phonological awareness, or that the child is going to be watching the reader's mouth. You might also share that just those interactions, you know, the executive is building executive functioning, right? Just those taking turns and having interactions and looking closely at one another's faces, those actions in themselves are building those essential skills, and they're leveraging those executive functions. So you're using all of those 5 building basics to build literacy skills when you're practicing that intentionally and even unintentionally, I think. So I wanted to just highlight those things and back up before I really get into talking about the first 2 skills on the list. I also wanted to frame your thinking a bit, right? Like I wanted to think about really concrete ways that we are and can build brains in our everyday selves. So I talked about sort of with yourself, you're doing that right now, you're thinking about these skills, you're practicing them. Part of that learning journey with Mind in the Making is to find ways to create goals for promoting skill building in others. So that's something that we can practice, that goal setting behavior. Building it into your programs, I have a whole presentation about this. There's millions of ways to do this, and libraries, I think, have a distinct opportunity here, right? There's these learning modules that anybody can take. They're free and they're online right now. You can display the brain building collateral on site, which some libraries have been doing, namely in Las Vegas. They've done a lot of that. And in some of the, I know you're talking today about bringing that camera closer, but I've watched several of your videos where you're seeing a little bit of the background, and those are places where you might incorporate room messaging or collateral posters, that kind of thing. That's an opportunity. Some librarians are even demonstrating actual room tips, right? They're including them in their videos. And then you're promoting that awareness of the skill building when you're talking to adults. Obviously, as a parent, that's what Vroom is really geared towards. So signing up for Vroom tips or reading the book or using the skill building children's books, these are all ways that we can use the content to do things with our own kids in our own households or our own classrooms. And then there are things that we see often in preschools, like skill building games like Simon Says and Red Light, Green Light. Those kinds of things are designed for skill building. That's why we use them in a preschool setting, and that's why they work. And finally, of course, that adult-child bond that we talked about a little bit before is really essential in all of the skill building. It's at the foundation of being able to scaffold on. So that's always what you're promoting, I know, whenever you're promoting time between adults and kids, and of course with our own families. So moving on to the actual skills we're going to talk about today. The first one, and I'm just going to go through the 7 essential skills during these weekly sessions in order. They don't have to be learned in order, but in my mind, they really do build on each other. So I like them in order, and I just like that kind of structure. So focus and self-control, you can see the description there on the right. It's a pretty straightforward description, right? We use the focus and self-control to achieve our goals, to keep us from being distracted by the world, or to continue to incorporate information and remember things and pay attention. So pretty self-explanatory and pretty obvious how we use it in our own life. You're using it right now to make yourself sit there and listen to me instead of look at, Instagram or whatever. And babies are ready to do this from the get-go, it turns out. So this is one example where there's that developmental timeline. There are things we can do right from birth where you can see children are already developmentally practicing some focus and self-control, like when they shut out noises or turn away from bright lights so that they can sleep or nurse. That's an example of that innate ability to focus and control oneself. And so there are ways we can build on to that. Vroom, of course, is an excellent way to practice building the skills. And there's a Vroom tip on the left that may not apply to your programming. It's not necessarily something you're able to build into your virtual programming, but it's definitely a tool that we can call out and highlight and share with families who want to spend more time developing this particular skill. So, that's kind of just an overview of the skill. And I think if we take just a quick second, which we always do in the learning modules, to think about, how focus and self-control are working in our adult lives. So I feel like there's so much of it happening all the time. And I spend a lot of time with this content, so I end up thinking about these things a lot. But there's obvious ways, just like, our ability to shift our focus and we're certainly all on some sort of, strategies to develop your programs that all switched gears, right? Everybody switched gears. And so you're practicing this in your work life, you're practicing this in your home life. And the development of those strategies to help us focus and control ourselves are pretty essential to building the skills. So I'm going to just kind of get out of this and show you a quick video. And hopefully you can hear it. Just give me a high sign if it's not working for you. But usually this works pretty well this way.
This is a bell, okay? It's called the marshmallow test. We try to set up situations in which young children make a choice between two of something.
Sorry, we're not seeing the video.
Okay, sorry. I think I didn't share my screen properly. Hang on a second. I'll start that again.
Would you like to have one marshmallow?
I just lose the screen sharing function somewhere in the mix here. There we go.
There we go.
Okay, so I'm gonna try to start it over if I can. Sorry about that.
This is a bell, okay? It's called the marshmallow test. We try to set up situations in which young children make a choice between two of something that you prefer later or one of something that you prefer a little less now. If you had to choose, would you like to have one marshmallow or would you like to have two marshmallows? The whole point of the experiment is to set up an intense conflict between the two.
Now here's how we play this game. I'm gonna leave the room while I'm gone. If you can stay here and wait for me to come back without eating the marshmallows, then you get 2 marshmallows. Okay. But if you don't want to wait, you can make me come back right away. The bell. By pressing the bell. But then you get 1 marshmallow, not 2 marshmallows. I won't ring the bell. You won't ring the bell? Okay.
The conflict for the child is very heavy, is that about half will go one way and half will go the other.
Oh, you made me come back.
It's like a little window into willpower for dilemmas that everybody faces. What we found is a very simple and direct way of measuring a competence that seems to make an important life difference. The longer they were able to wait at age 4, the better the ratings of their ability to control themselves and to pursue their academic and other goals.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it there because it's more of the same and we're kind of limited on time. But you can see there those strategies that kids use, right, to wait, because they're using some goal-oriented executive functions to help them wait and to get what they want. So I think that's a classic example of the research that's in Mind in the Making, and it also shows us that research bears out some of that developmental timeline about when those skills develop, and then obvious the value in promoting strategies to develop focus and self-control. So like I mentioned before, there's lots of opportunities to build the skill building into your programming, and one of those ways that I called out is to use the Mind in the Making skill building books and the corresponding tips. That is like choosing the book that you use to share with families, then inherently the book is doing some skill building as part of the literature. But then you can see the why, the why of the skill building, why the book is important or helpful in building that skill, and also some tips to kind of stretch out that opportunity with that particular book. So this is just one example. And like I said, there's lots of different ways that you might incorporate this stuff into your program. And I quickly want to go through the second skill. I know we're running short on time, so I'm just going to rush right through it. The second skill is perspective taking, and the easy go-to way to think about this is empathy, but really perspective taking is more than that. It's so important in our lives right now in Nevada, right? Learning to take the perspective of the other voters around us, and also to, you know, continue to work together, knowing that we have different perspectives. And so children especially, who can take perspectives of others, are less likely to spend their time involved with conflicts with other people. They're less likely to do the classic hostile attribution bias, where every interaction that might rub someone the wrong way goes straight to attributing hostile intent to the other person. So this is an important skill. You know, any of us who are married or living with other adults in our household definitely know what it's like to have to take the perspective of another person in order to keep harmony. And I'll skip this video, but this is one of the videos from the perspective taking module in Mind in the Making. It shows us again that developmental timeline for where younger children have a really hard time understanding that anyone would think or feel differently than they do. This experiment puts a bowl of goldfish crackers and a bowl of broccoli between the adult and the child, and the adult shows very clearly her preference for broccoli and asks the child to give her more of what she likes. The younger children can't comprehend that she likes broccoli. The older children from 14 months and on do understand that, and they will give her what she prefers, even though they themselves prefer the other. So this is it shows us where that skill can be developed at a very young age. And then when we use tools like Vroom, or we use, we're thinking about our own executive functioning, we're thinking about our own perspective taking, we can start to model some behaviors. This has a lot to do with your emotional intelligence, and the muscles that we flex to build our emotional intelligence fit right in here. Here's another opportunity with a book, right? Again, each of these essential skills has corresponding children's books identified as skill building opportunities, with some materials that go along with it. So this is a way you could really focus on this particular skill. Although again, we're really looking at trying to understand and acknowledge all of these skills in our executive functioning, and find ways to share that with the families that we're working with. So I'm going to leave it there and stop sharing my screen.
Okay, thank you. Real quickly, learning books on your databases have the Mind in the Making books that you can use in your programming there. Sulin showed it on the last video. I don't have it up. I forgot to put it up. And I know we're just at the near end of this, but check out that. And also, Sara, if you could, please put your email and other contact information, because we had some questions, and maybe even a link to the video, if you could, for people. And she'll put that in chat for you. The other thing I would just like to add is, in adding these skills, the hardest one to add is the patience one into a virtual story time. The one thing that I do know that has worked virtually is the simple game of bingo, the B-I-N-G-O, B-I, because it teaches them they have to not clap or clap. And, developing that skill, that's one way that I do know that you can virtually put this into your program. And the other thing is, as in perspective, you're doing that already when you're reading them a story about a character. And if you ask a question, I think Robin alluded to this, if you ask a question to the kids, even if you can't hear the answer, it's like, well, how did Brown Bear feel? Or how did Max feel when he was sent to his room? Was he angry? And you don't necessarily need a response, but it's just a way to get the ball rolling. And to highlight these things, what you're doing to the parents. I always like to think that if you were born in this country, Sesame Street and an electric company are pretty much the way you think about how to do story times virtually and how to teach these skills. If you can recall any of those, then you see the sinister forces behind those shows to teach us these skills and how to learn. So, it gets shocking when you think about it. Like, I learned how to count. The count was teaching me. How sorry. You know, and I thought I was being entertained. But these are all good skills. I promise you guys that I won't run over too much time, and we have reached the end of our allotment of time because I do know that you have colleagues who will kill you if you don't show up on time, and supervisors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask right now. Okay, and I hope this has been helpful for you guys. And let me share my screen one last time. And okay, and that was our discussion time. I had to get in the cute little dachshund. These are things I want you to think about for the next time. Communicating and making connections, print motivation, and print awareness. We've combined those two because they both have print in their description. And so I want you all to give a thought about that. And hold on, I'm going to give you a couple of seconds. And before I stop the sharing of this. Okay, and now I'm going to stop the recording. Thank you all for attending.